We are now moving on to District 2 candidates, and with us to start things is Ron Bates, a former Los Alamitos mayor and councilman who somehow wants to get back into the game here. So why don't you take a minute and talk to the camera and reintroduce yourself to the voters?
You bet. Good afternoon. My name is Ron Bates. As Larry mentioned, I'm a former mayor and council member. I guess in this election, one of the things that's relevant is that I've lived in the same house in the 2nd District for 43 years. My wife and I have lived there, raised 2 children who went to the Los Alamitos, through the Los Alamitos Unified School District schools, and are very proud residents of Los Alamitos. Additionally, my professional career has been primarily in city management. I have had some experience in the private sector as a certified financial planner, although I'm not doing that now. But I have also spent many, many years as a city manager. I was city manager in the cities of Buena Park, La Habra Heights, Southgate, Pico Rivera, and assistant city manager in the city of Anaheim. So I guess as an introduction, I'd say I'm well versed on city business. As was mentioned, I've been on the city council for many years, and as mayor on 4 different occasions. So I hope, Larry, that suits as a little bit of background. I guess I could talk a little bit about education. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay, let's add.
This is, for the voters
okay,
to meet you,
so a little bit on education. I have an undergraduate degree from Cal State LA, and I have both a master's and PhD from USC, the University of Southern California, in public administration with a specialty in finance. So a lot of the work I've done in local governments, both at the city and county level, has been in public finance, and that I know will relate to some of the discussion we have later, Larry.
What are your thoughts on Measure Y?
Sure.
And do you have any other other things you're really concerned with regarding the city's budgetary?
Sure. Well, one of the reasons that I was hired as city manager in some of these different cities is related to my background in public finance. And I've been able to turn most of those cities around. Now is a very difficult time, especially given the issues with COVID. So I would say that the voters are going to get somebody who's well versed in all these issues. And I think with regard to Measure Y, that the city, the community, the staff have done a very good job in reducing costs, because obviously that's one of the first things you look at. How can we reduce costs in order to try to balance the budget? I think the city, with community input, with business input, has done a good job of reducing the costs. And they've even gone through some layoffs here in the city. So that's been done well, which then brings you to why Measure Y. Why should we support Measure Y? Well, I do support Measure Y, and I think there are 2 good reasons to support Measure Y. One, most of the reductions have been made, and there are a lot of built-in costs into a city budget which go up every year as long as the city is functioning. Consequently, there is some need for additional revenue. I think already structurally, and I'll use that term, we're about $700,000 a year in the hole. So hopefully we don't want to see a city where all we have is just, say, public safety services. You've got to provide some additional services to the community: parks, recreation, public works. And so I think we need the funding in order to continue to do that. So that's one of the first reasons I'd be supportive of Measure Y. And the second reason, and this is based on my experience in 2 cities recently, one in Southgate and one in Pico Rivera. The one I'll relate to right now is specifically in Southgate. And here's what happens is we may have the best intention. Nobody wants to increase taxes, and I put myself in that category. Unfortunately, the way the system works is we have like 9.25 cent sales tax to work with statewide. In this city, we have left 1.5 cents left on the sales tax to be at the maximum. The problem is, if you want to keep your money locally, you need to do that by passing the city tax. And if we don't do that, I think we can pretty well be assured, because this is what happened to me in Southgate, there, MTA, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, came in and took off 0.5 cent off that sales tax. I think here in Orange County, we have the same challenge. If we don't keep the money locally here in the city of Los Alamitos, I think we can count on OCTA, the Orange County Transportation Authority, the Flood Control District, the Vector Control District, Metropolitan Water District, the Air Quality Management District. All those people will be in line to take that money, and we'll lose control of that money here locally to put back into our community. So I'd say those are two good reasons for voters to give serious consideration to supporting Measure Y.
Do you think those problems are exacerbated now because of COVID-19, the challenges, because every agency is strapped for cash? Absolutely,
Larry. Every agency is strapped for cash. I think that if we look at cities, more and more cities we're already seeing, are requesting funding from the federal government to just maintain their budgets. It's happening at the state level too. So with COVID and some of these businesses, and I think we'll be talking about this, with some of these businesses that are under so much pressure and can't operate at full capacity, the city loses the value of all that sales tax that you would ordinarily have to help run your city. So maybe if I could just carry that comment over a little further, I think it's one of our responsibilities as elected officials to see how we can work with our businesses to get them functioning safely, and that's the key. It has to be done effectively, well, in conjunction with county and state health officials to make sure that people are safe, but to do it in such a way that we can try to get these businesses back operational so some of these small businesses can survive, and at the same time the city and community benefits from the sales tax and other business taxes that they generate to help provide services to the community. Besides the budget, what do you think the biggest issues facing Los Alamitos? That's obviously the big one, but... Sure. Let me take two steps in this. First, let me say, hey, District 2 has a major issue that we're concerned about, and we've worked hard to try to work with the school district and put some limits on the lighting, and the improvements at the track and the microphones are having an impact on the whole northern area, College Park North, Greenbrook, the 29 homes right adjacent to the high school. All those are being impacted by the lights and the sound system that is operating there. So we've worked, my wife was involved in this, a lot of people in the community were involved in District 2, and we're able to work with the district to limit the use of that facility to students, and everything closed down by 8 o'clock at night. No adult soccer leagues in there on the weekend, no renting to other outside organizations to use that facility, which is important to keep the sound and the noise down in the communities that surround the high school. So I think that's an important issue for District 2, and I certainly will continue to work with the school district and their representatives to mitigate the challenge that track, the lights, and the sound system have on those residents in the northern part of the district. I'd say generally the challenges that the city has, I think, relate to our businesses and helping to encourage them and promote their success, getting people back working and going to the establishments, patronizing these businesses, again, in a safe and effective way that indirectly helps the whole community, helps the tax base, and helps keep these businesses viable in our community.
You kind of touched on this when you're talking about working with the school district. Obviously, Los Alamitos is intertwined and interdependent with the school district, but also Rossmore. It depends on Rossmore for tax dollars, sales tax dollars, and just people working, subscribing to the rec programs.
Sure.
Like that. What skills do you bring to facilitating the really effective cooperation with those agencies?
Sure, Larry. I guess I would say, in a very pleasant way, look at my record. And in the past, I was very successful in having our city staff, the city council, all of us work with the school district. And if you'll remember, many years ago, we put that whole complex at McAuliffe together with the improved fields, the lighted fields for the football in the afternoons on Friday, for soccer all weekend. That's just one example of where I've been able to work with the school district. I think we can take another example. While I was mayor, I worked with our city staff, with staffs of every city around us, the county and the state. And if you'll remember, that pool over at the Joint Forces Training Base used to be a mud hole. It used to have frogs in the bottom of it.
I remember it well.
You remember it? We were able to reconstitute that. I helped bring in funding from the states, the county, the cities around supported that. And now we've got a beautiful facility over there that hosts the U.S. women's team and a lot of the local water polo teams, swim teams, adult swim over there that's just getting back in operation now as COVID is starting to mitigate. So I think those are some examples, Larry, of ways that I've helped in the past, and I think I'll be able to help in the future.
We talked about COVID a little bit, and you touched on this, but it's going to have lasting impact.
Sure.
Do you think that will be a severe problem, or just it'll be a temporary problem? And what will those problems be, do you think?
I do believe that some of our small businesses are going to have difficulty in coming back. That's why I say I think we've got to go out of the way to try to help them as best we can. I think the city's done a good job. If we've seen some of the outside parking areas that have been converted to outside dining, I think we need to look at all options that are on the table to help businesses start to come back. I'm very pleased that the school district is back in operation now, both at the elementary, middle, and high school level. I think getting the kids back into a good educational environment where they can learn a lot more than sitting there in front of their computers all day, I think is really positive for the community. But I think more specific answer to your question, I don't think we're going to be bouncing back in the next couple months here. I think this is going to be at least a full year to maybe a 2-year recovery before we see things back to the way they were before, and we really can build the kind of community interaction that I think has been a hallmark of Los Alamitos, Rossmore, this whole area working together with the youth center to really build a really interactive and successful community.
It's obviously a general election year, but the political climate is, I don't know if it's new, but it's certainly more visibly acrimonious.
Yes.
Do you think that is a threat to Los Alamitos in any way, to getting things done? Or is it just something it's an aberration elsewhere and not a problem here?
I hope not. And that's the way I'll view it. I think that civil discourse needs to be respectful, appropriate, and informative for the people so they can make appropriate decisions. I think the fiasco we saw on television last night with the presidential debate was just that, a fiasco. It embarrasses the whole country, it embarrasses us internationally. It doesn't contribute to anything except acrimony and division. One thing that I think is very positive, And that's why I like local government so much, is because it's nonpartisan. I mean, we run as individuals, select the best individual, which then makes it a lot easier for us to work together for the benefit of the community.
All right. Closing statement, your elevator pitch. You have 30 seconds to talk to the voters of District 2.
You bet.
To the camera.
You
Give
bet.
it your best shot.
You bet. I'd just like to say that I've really enjoyed this city. I've enjoyed raising our children in this community. I think we've all benefited from the quality of life that we provide. I really have the energy and the commitment to do a great job for the city. I think you can count on me to sit down the first day, if you do elect me, and start working in a very effective manner. Obviously, with my background, I don't have a big learning curve to deal with. So in closing, I'd say thank you. I really enjoy this community, and I'd appreciate your vote either by mail or on November the 3rd. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.